Hey guys, tonight we are traveling back, way back, to a place of towering stone monuments and bustling Red Sea ports. We're exploring the mighty Aksumite Empire of ancient Africa. But we're not here for the kings or the wars. We're here for the food. Imagine a world where your daily bread is made from a grain the size of a poppy seed, where stews simmer for hours over an open fire, and where the most valuable seasoning is carried for hundreds of miles on the backs of camels. It's a cuisine born from the high mountains and fertile valleys of what is now Ethiopia and Eritrea, a culinary world almost entirely lost to time. Frankly, given the sheer amount of manual labor involved in just preparing breakfast, it's a world you probably wouldn't survive for more than a few days before you were begging for a toaster and a bag of pre-sliced bread. The daily grind was quite literally a grind. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It lets the great algorithm in the sky know that slow, sleepy stories like this are worth sharing. And for a bit of fun, drop your location and what time it is where you're in the comments. I love seeing how far these little journeys reach. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the air. It's cool and thin, carrying the scent of dry earth and the faint, smoky residue of yesterday's fire. You're waking up not to an alarm, but to a subtle shift in the light. A pale gray filtering through a single high window in a wall of rough-hewn stone. You're in a circular house, a tukul. Its thick walls keeping out the worst of the day's eventual heat and the night's definite chill. You push aside a heavy blanket woven from wool and stretch, your bare feet finding the cool. Packed earth floor. There is no sound but the gentle breathing of your family, still asleep in the soft shadows. But the day has begun, and with it, the most fundamental task. Your breakfast and lunch and dinner will not happen without you. In a corner of the main room, waiting for you, are the tools. They are your kitchen, your food processor, your entire culinary world, all in two pieces of stone. The first is a large, slightly concave slab of basalt, perhaps 3 feet long and 1.5 feet wide. It's called a saddle quern, or a grinding stone, and it has been worn smooth by generations of hands. Your mother's hands, your grandmother's hands. It sits permanently on the floor, a silent anchor to your family's existence. The second is a smaller, loaf-shaped stone, the hand stone, heavy enough to feel substantial in your grip. This is your engine. Beside the grinding stone is a wide, shallow wicker basket filled with what looks like reddish-brown sand. But lean closer. This is teff. Each grain is almost microscopic, a tiny speck of potential. It's the staple food of the Ethiopian highlands, a grass that has nourished this land for millennia. Historians and botanists still debate the exact timeline of teff's domestication, but its presence in Aksum was undeniable and absolute. It was their wheat, their rice, their everything, and turning these impossibly small seeds into something edible is your first and most important job of the day. You kneel before the great stone slab, a position you will hold for the better part of the next hour or two. It's not a posture of prayer, but one of pure, grueling work. You scoop a handful of the tiny teff grains onto the near edge of the slab. You take the hand stone in both hands, plant your knees firmly, and lean forward, putting the weight of your shoulders and back into the first push. The sound begins. A gritty, rhythmic scraping of stone on stone. S-H-H-H-H-R-A. S-H-H-H-H-R-A. It is the sound of mourning across the entire empire. In every home, in every village clinging to the mountainsides, this sound is the kingdom's heartbeat. You push the hand stone forward, crushing the minuscule grains into an even more minuscule powder. Then you pull it back, gathering the uncrushed seeds for the next pass. Push and pull. Shira, shira. It's an all-body workout that no modern gym could hope to replicate. Your shoulders burn, your lower back protests, your wrists ache. The repetitive motion is hypnotic, mind-numbing, and utterly essential. There is no shortcut, no Aksumite equivalent of buying flour at the market. Wealth was not a release from this task. A richer family just had more daughters or servants to share the load. The sound is the only thing that fills the quiet of the house. It's a sound that says, "We are still here, we will eat today." After a few minutes, a fine, grayish-brown powder begins to accumulate at the far end of the slab. It's not much. You pause, your breath coming in soft puffs, and use the edge of your hand to sweep the precious flour into a waiting earthenware bowl. Then you pull the remaining crushed grains back toward you and begin again. A small handful of teff looks like nothing, yet it demands so much. One of the strange little tidbits about teff is that, for all this work, it's naturally gluten-free. A fact that would be utterly meaningless to you, but would cause a sensation in a 21st century grocery store. For you, it's just food. You fall into the rhythm. The world shrinks to the space between your knees and the far edge of the stone. Push and pull. The scraping sound becomes your mantra. You think of nothing and everything. You think of the flatbread this flour will become, of the water you'll need to fetch from the stream later, of the goat that seems to be limping. It's a form of meditation, a forced mindfulness dictated by the simple, brutal physics of survival. This is the foundation of every single meal. Without this gray dust, there is no spongy bread. Without the bread, there is nothing to scoop up the savory stew. Without the stew, there is only hunger. It all starts here, on your knees, in the cool morning light, with the sound of stone on stone. Your work with the stones is done. The rhythmic scraping fades into silence, replaced by the faint ringing in your own ears. Before you is the fruit of your labor. A bowl filled with a surprisingly small amount of fine, brownish-gray teff flour. It feels soft, almost silky to the touch, but it is just dust. The magic has not yet happened. To transform this, you need two more things: water and life. You rise, your knees cracking in protest, and move toward another corner of the house where a large clay pot, cool to the touch, holds the day's water. You pour a careful amount into the bowl of flour, mixing it with your hands until it forms a thin, soupy batter. It's a plain, uninspiring mixture. The secret ingredient, the soul of your future meal, is kept in a smaller, covered clay jar. This is the earth show, the starter. Lifting the lid, you're met with a distinct, tangy, sour smell. It's a living aroma, yeasty and sharp. You peer inside. The mixture is alive, bubbling slowly, a thick, beige liquid that is home to a complex colony of wild yeasts and bacteria captured from the very air in this room. This little pot of sour goo is a family heirloom, a continuous chain of life passed from mother to daughter, more precious than any piece of jewelry. It's a bit like a modern pet, except you can't forget to feed it or it will literally die and take your ability to make bread with it. No pressure. You scoop out most of this living starter and mix it into your new batch of teff batter. Then, you take a scoop of the new batter and pour it back into the starter pot. This is the feeding. You've given the living culture a fresh meal of teff flour, ensuring it will be alive and bubbling for you tomorrow. You cover the main bowl of batter with a cloth and set it in a warm, dark corner of the room. And now you wait. For a day, maybe two, the wild yeast will feast on the sugars in the teff, multiplying and releasing tiny bubbles of carbon dioxide that will make the bread light and spongy, and lactic acid that will give it its signature, slightly sour taste. This fermentation process isn't just for flavor. It also breaks down the tough grain, unlocking its nutrients and making them easier for your body to absorb. But you don't need to eat tomorrow. You need to eat today, but stronger now. The surface of the batter is pocked with the evidence of millions of tiny bubbles that have risen and burst. It is ready. Your hearth is a simple affair, a shallow pit in the earthen floor where embers from last night's fire are still glowing faintly. You add a few pieces of dried wood and some dried cattle dung, a surprisingly effective and common fuel, and gently blow the embers back to life. Over this fire rests the centerpiece of your baking technology, the magogo. Archaeologists and food historians argue about the specific type of clay oven or griddle used, as direct evidence is scarce. But most agree it was a large, flat, heated surface like this. Yours is a wide, circular plate of black clay. The stack of warm, spongy bread sits in its basket, a pale tower of potential. But bread alone, no matter how lovingly prepared, is not a meal. It is a vehicle, a canvas waiting for color and flavor. And that flavor comes from the earth. You leave the smoky warmth of the house and step out into the morning. The sun is brighter now, climbing over the distant flat-topped mountains, and the air is filled with the clean scent of growing things. Your homestead is a small clearing on a sloping hill, a patch of flattened earth around your stone house, and just beyond it, your garden. It is not a garden in the modern sense, with neat, ruler-straight rows and tidy labels. It is a chaotic, beautiful, and intensely practical tangle of life. A plot of land, perhaps the size of a large room, where plants climb, sprawl, and intertwine in a way that makes perfect sense to you. This small patch is the difference between a bland, monotonous diet and one of richness and variety. You grab a wide, shallow basket and head into the green maze. Your first destination is the cluster of wispy, delicate-looking plants that are, in many ways, as important as the teff itself, the lentils. These are a cornerstone of Aksumite agriculture. They are hardy, nutritious, and they grow well in the highland soil. The plants are turning brown and dry in the sun, their little pods brittle to the touch. This is what you want. You run your hand up a stalk, and the tiny, papery pods rustle, promising the treasure within. You carefully snap the dry stalks and lay them in your basket. Later, you will thresh them by hand, breaking open the pods to release the tiny, lens-shaped seeds that will form the thick, protein-rich base of your stew. Next, you move to the leafy greens. Great, hardy bushes with wide, dark green leaves, something akin to modern kale or collard greens. They are sturdy and a bit tough, perfect for long, slow cooking, where they will wilt down into a soft, savory mass. You pluck the largest, healthiest leaves from the outside of the plant, leaving the young inner leaves to continue growing. You'll be back tomorrow and the day after for more. This garden is a cycle, a constant source of sustenance as long as you tend to it. And then you see the gourds. They are everywhere. They're thick vines snaking along the ground and climbing up a rough wooden trellis on the far side of the garden. Here, you find one of the most useful plants in your entire world. A plant we now call Lagenaria cicereria, or the bottle gourd. You see them in all stages of life. Small, tender, pale green ones that are perfect for dicing and adding to the stew. You pick one of these, its skin smooth under your thumb. But you also see the plant's other gift. Hanging from the trellis are several older, much larger gourds that have been left to mature. Their skin has turned a hard, woody brown. Once hollowed out and dried, these will become your bottles, your ladles, your bowls, and your storage containers. It's the ultimate multi-tool, a gift from the earth that is both food and vessel. It's hard not to admire such an overachiever. Of course, this green paradise doesn't just... As you turn from the garden, basket resting on your hip, a sound drifts across the morning air. It's a low, gentle moo. It is not a sound of distress, but a simple, placid announcement of presence. It comes from the small, fenced-in pasture adjacent to your homestead, the domain of your family's most valuable possessions. These are your wealth, your status, your emergency fund, and, occasionally, your food. This is your wealth on four legs. You set the basket of vegetables by the door of the house and walk toward the sound. There, standing serenely under the shade of a broad-leafed acacia tree, are your 3 cows and a young bull. They are zebu cattle, perfectly and beautifully adapted to this land. The first thing you always notice is the hump, a prominent, fleshy mound rising from their shoulders, giving them a profile unlike any other bovine. It's not bone, it's a store of fat, an energy reserve for the lean times, the dry seasons when the grass is thin. You look at their long, floppy ears, which help to dissipate heat, and the loose folds of skin under their necks. They are masterpieces of natural engineering, built to thrive where other cattle would wither. You lean on the rough wood of the fence, just watching them for a moment. In your world, these animals are far more than livestock. They are living money. They are the price of a bride's dowry, the settlement for a dispute, the tribute paid to a local chief. The number of cattle a family owns is a direct and visible measure of their standing in the community. Having a healthy herd is like having a vault full of gold, except a lot more useful. You can't milk gold, after all. A neighbor might not be impressed by a stash of coins hidden in your house, but they see your cattle every single day. It's a quiet, constant declaration of your family's stability and prosperity. The young bull watches you with big, dark, liquid eyes, chewing his cud with a slow, rhythmic grinding of his jaw. He is the future of your herd, your family's prize. Owning a strong bull like him is the modern equivalent of having a brand new luxury car parked in the driveway. It's a status symbol that gets the neighbors talking, a sign that your family is blessed. But for all their value as symbols, their most regular contribution to your kitchen is not their meat, but their milk. One of the cows, the one with a white patch over her left eye, ambles toward you. It's time. You unlatch the simple gate and walk in, carrying a small wooden bucket. The air smells of grass, dust, and the warm, animal scent of the herd. You speak to the cow in low, soothing tones as you approach, running a hand along her flank. She stands patiently, as she does every morning. You settle onto a small, three-legged stool, another simple but essential piece of household equipment, and place the bucket beneath her. The process of milking is a gentle ritual. The warm, rough texture of her udder, the firm, practiced squeeze and pull, and then the sound is sharp, hissing stream hitting the bottom of the emptied bucket, which gradually softens to a foamy splashing as the bucket fills. The milk is rich. You stand with the bucket of warm milk, its creamy scent a comforting presence. You have the flour, the bread, the vegetables from the garden, the soured milk from yesterday. It is a good foundation, the bedrock of your daily existence. But today might be different. Today there might be meat, not the sacred, walking wealth of your zebu cattle, but something wild, a gift from the rugged, untamed lands that stretch out beyond your small pocket of cultivation. Your brother left before the sun was fully up, carrying only his bow, a quiver of arrows, and a water skin. He is the hunter, and his contribution transforms a simple meal into a feast. As you go about your morning tasks, your mind follows him out into the wilderness. You picture him moving silently through the tall, golden grasses, his eyes scanning the horizon. The landscape he travels is vastly different from your tidy garden. It is a world of sharp rocks, thorny acacia trees, and vast, empty spaces under a wide, unforgiving sky. It is a place that demands respect, a place where humans are not masters, but merely another creature trying to survive. This is the other half of the Aksumite world, the wild counterpart to the settled agricultural life. His work is an art of immense patience. It is not about noise and force, but about stillness and observation. He finds a set of tracks in the dry, reddish earth, the delicate, cloven hoof prints of a gazelle. He kneels, reading the story in the dirt. How fresh are they? Which way was it heading? Was it moving slowly, grazing, or was it spooked and running? He is a scholar of the wild, and the earth is his text. The hunt is mostly walking, hours of silent, careful tracking, his senses on high alert for the slightest sign. A broken twig, a disturbed stone, the distant alarm call of a bird. It's the original long commute, and the destination is dinner. He might spend half the day climbing into the high, rocky escarpments, the domain of the wally ibex. You've seen these creatures from a distance, magnificent wild goats with enormous, backward curving horns. They move with an impossible, breathtaking grace, leaping from one precarious ledge to another on cliffs that would make you dizzy just to look at. They almost seem to be mocking the earthbound hunter from their stony fortresses. Hunting them requires not just stamina, but a profound understanding of the vertical world they inhabit. Today, however, his luck is in the lowlands. After hours of tracking, he spots them, a small herd of gazelles, their tan hides blending almost perfectly with the dry grass. Now the real work begins. The stalk. He must move with the wind in his face, so his scent doesn't carry. He uses every rock, every bush, every dip in the terrain for cover. His movements are slow, deliberate, almost meditative. A dozen steps, then a long pause, absolutely still, just watching. This can take another hour or more, a slow, tense crawl toward his quarry. This is the essence of the hunt. Scholars debate how much of this was ritualistic or symbolic. The hearth is once again the center of your universe. The fire, which you use to bake the bread, has been fed and now glows with a steady, orange pulse, ready for the main event. Around you, the fruits of the morning's labor are assembled like actors waiting for their cue. The basket of greens and gourds, the earthy pile of threshed lentils, the precious offering from your brother's hunt, and the silent, waiting stack of injera. It is time to create the what, the rich, fragrant, slow-cooked stew that will bring all these separate elements together into a single, glorious meal. The foundation of any good what, now and for the last 1,000 years, is onions. Your mother, the undisputed master of the hearth, takes charge of this crucial first step. You watch her, learning the movements she learned from her own mother. Pungent aroma fills the small house, a scent that promises good things to come. She sweeps them not into a slick of oil, but into a heavy, black clay pot set directly over the heat. This is a key secret. The onions are cooked down slowly, patiently, in their own juices, a process that coaxes out their natural sweetness and melts them into a thick, jammy pulp. It's a low, slow sizzle, a sound that settles into the background rhythm of the home. While she tends to the onions, your task is to prepare the hunter's gift. You carefully cut the gazelle meat into small, bite-sized pieces. It is lean and dark, a treasure that must be handled with care. Each piece represents hours of your brother's effort and a rare dose of rich protein. Once the onions have cooked down to a sweet, fragrant base, your mother adds the meat to the pot. The sound changes to a more energetic sizzle as the meat browns, releasing its savory aroma, which now mingles with the sweetness of the onions. Now it is time for the main body of the stew. You pour in the lentils, which you rinsed clean in a bowl of water, and add enough water to cover everything. The pot begins to bubble, a gentle blup, 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 a slow and comforting sound that will continue for the next hour or more. The leafy greens are stirred in, wilting almost instantly in the heat, and then the diced gourds. The pot is now a swirling mixture of colors and textures. But the true soul of the what comes from a small, unassuming leather pouch that your mother keeps carefully stored. This is the spice blend. The exact composition of Aksumites, the what bubbles gently, its aroma a thick, savory blanket in the small house. It is nearly perfect. It has the earthy depth of the lentils, the sweetness of the onions, the wild tang of the gazelle meat, and the complex perfume of the spice blend. But one final, crucial element is missing. The one thing that will awaken all the other flavors and make them sing. Your mother reaches for a small, cloth-wrapped object stored on a high shelf. It is a rough, off-white, rectangular block. It is a bar of salt. As she takes it, your mind travels with it, leaving the cool highlands and journeying hundreds of miles to the place of its birth, one of the most brutal and beautiful landscapes on the entire planet. Imagine a caravan of camels, their bells clinking softly, leaving the green, terraced hills of Aksum behind. They descend day after day, leaving the cool, thin air for something thicker, heavier, and hotter. They are heading east towards the Danakil Depression, a place so low it feels like the bottom of the world. And in many ways, it is a vast, tectonic wound in the Earth's surface, a desert within a desert, and one of the hottest places year-round that human can be. As the caravan gets closer, the landscape becomes a surreal dream. The familiar red earth gives way to cracked mud, then to plains of blinding, crystalline white. The air, which was once filled with the scent of soil and plants, now tastes of minerals and stings your nostrils. The sun is not the friendly, life-giving orb of the highlands. It is a merciless, white-hot disk in a hazy, bleached-out sky. Here, the very ground shimmers and rides with heat. And it is here, in this seemingly uninhabitable wasteland, that the salt miners work. They're the Afar people, men as tough and resilient as the landscape itself. You picture them, their skin weathered by sun and salty air, their bodies lean and wiry. They work on the vast, flat salt pans, the dried-up beds of ancient lakes. Their tools are not complex. They use long poles and crude axes to break through the thick, salt crust that covers the earth like a sheet of ice, prying up huge slabs of the rock salt. Then, with incredible skill, they begin to shape it. They chip and chisel the rough slabs into smooth, rectangular blocks of standard size and weight. These bars are called but just before the first piece of bread is torn, you close your eyes and take one last deep breath, inhaling the steam. You can smell the sweet onions, the earthy lentils, the savory meat, the sharp local herbs, the mineral tang of the desert salt. But woven through it all is another scent, something warmer, sharper, and utterly foreign. It is the ghost of a long journey, not to the blistering desert, but down the other side of the mountains towards the coast. It is a long, winding journey down from the cool, thin air through fertile valleys and scrublands, until the air grows thick, wet, and heavy with humidity. And then you smell it, the unmistakable sharp, briny scent of the Red Sea. You have arrived at Adulis, the great port, Aksum's gateway to the known world. Adulis is an explosion of sensation, a chaotic and thrilling assault on the senses of a quiet Highlander. It is the polar opposite of your village. The heat is a heavy blanket, the sun fierce. The sounds are a cacophony of languages you don't understand. The clipped Greek of Byzantine sailors, the flowing dialects of Arabian merchants. Dizzying marketplace that stretches from the stone wharves where the ships are moored. The ships themselves are a marvel. You see the elegant, lateen-sailed dhows of the Arabian traders, and the larger, sturdier vessels of the Roman and Byzantine merchants, their square sails neatly furled. Men shout as they unload the cargo. Heavy clay amphorae filled with wine and olive oil, gleaming glass bowls and goblets, iron tools, and bolts of brightly colored silk. You wander through the market, your eyes wide. Here, a merchant displays raw, glassy obsidian and fragrant lumps of frankincense and myrrh from the highlands. But you follow your nose, drawn to one particular corner of the market. Here, the air is thick with the most incredible collection of scents you have ever experienced. This is the spice corner. Merchants sit behind open sacks and chests that hold the treasures of the East. One sack spills over with hard, dark little spheres that give off a pungent, almost nose-tickling aroma. Black pepper from the Malabar coast of India. A single peppercorn, you've been told, is a luxury, so valuable it can be used to pay taxes. Next to it are brittle, rolled-up sticks of cinnamon bark from Ceylon and tiny, nail-shaped cloves from islands so far away they exist only in sailors' tales. The journey of these spices is almost impossible to comprehend. A collective sigh of satisfaction hangs in the air. The first piece of injera is torn. No one speaks. The first bite is a moment of pure, focused appreciation. You scoop up a mouthful of the rich wad. The flavors explode on your tongue. The savory meat, the creamy lentils, the warmth of the pepper, the tang of the soured milk. And hidden within it all, a tiny burst of bright, fruity sweetness, followed by a deeper, more floral sweetness that coats your tongue. These are the flavors that cannot be planted, traded, or bought. These are the secret flavors, the gifts of the wild. Your mind drifts to a memory from a few days ago when you were walking the hillsides with your grandmother. She is the keeper of the old knowledge, the one who knows the land, not as a farmer. She shows you how to identify it by the shape of its leaf and the tiny, almost invisible hairs on its stem. Ethnobotanists and archaeologists often struggle to identify the exact species of wild plants used in ancient diets, as plant matter rarely preserves well. They can only guess. Dark purple berries, glistening like jewels in the sun. They are a pain to pick. You must be slow and deliberate to avoid pricking your fingers. But the reward is a handful of berries that are intensely sweet with a sharp, tangy finish. These were the tiny bursts of fruit you just tasted in the wad. Their sweetness a perfect counterpoint to the richness of the stew. But the greatest prize, the most treasured of all foraged foods, requires a different kind of skill. It requires a collaboration. Your grandmother taught you how to listen for a specific bird, a small, drab, unassuming little creature known as a honey guide. It is a bird with a purpose and a proposition. When it finds a human, it begins to chatter and flit from branch to branch, actively trying to get your attention. If you follow, it will lead you. It is a pact, an ancient alliance. The bird knows where the bees are, but it cannot get through their defenses. You have the tool of fire, but you might search for days without finding a hive. Together, you are a team. You remember following the insistent little bird, deeper into the woodlands than you usually go. It would fly ahead, land on a branch, chatter impatiently until you caught up, and then fly ahead again. It led you to the base of an enormous. The rich, savory what coats your mouth, a tapestry of complex flavors. To cleanse your palate, to cut through the richness and prepare for the next delicious scoop, you need a drink. Your father lifts a large, spouted clay jug, heavy with its contents, and begins to pour. There are no fine glass goblets here. The drinking vessels are simple cups made of fired clay or horn. Into your cup he pours a cloudy, straw-colored liquid with a thin, foamy head. This is Tella, the beer of Aksum. It is the constant companion to every meal, the fuel for every day's labor, the social lubricant for every gathering. You take a long swallow. The taste is familiar and deeply comforting. It is not like a modern beer, filtered and clear. It is thick, tangy, and yeasty, with a slight, malty sweetness balanced by a distinct, earthy bitterness. It is refreshing and substantial all at once. It's less like a beverage and more like a food in liquid form, a process as routine and essential as the baking of the bread. You remember watching your mother begin this very batch about a week ago. The process starts not with the finest grains, ensuring nothing is ever wasted. For this batch, she used barley. The first step was to moisten the grains and leave them in a warm, dark place for a few days, letting them sprout. This act of germination begins to convert the starches into fermentable sugars. While the grains sprouted, she prepared the bittering agent. In a pot of water, she boiled the dried leaves and stems of a local shrub called gesho. These leaves are to Aksumite brewers what hops are to their modern counterparts. They impart a characteristic bitterness that balances the sweetness of the grain, and their antibacterial properties help to preserve the beer and prevent it from spoiling. While gesho is the standard, historians and archaeobotanists debate what other local plants might have been used in Aksumite times to flavor and preserve their beer. The exact flavor profile of ancient Tella could have varied significantly based on available local flora before gesho became the gold standard. Once the grains had sprouted, they were dried in the sun and coarsely ground. The cloudy, nourishing Tella flows, and the conversation around the communal platter is easy and comfortable. This is the drink of every day, as reliable and present as the ground you walk on. But as you sip its rustic, earthy flavor, your mind wanders to the taste of celebrations. You know that for a wedding, or for the great festival of Maskell, or to welcome a truly honored guest, a different vessel is brought out from its careful storage place. A slender-necked flask, called a baril, and from that flask is poured a liquid that looks like captured sunlight. This is Tej, the noble honey wine. You've only tasted it a few times in your life, but the memory is vivid. It is a drink of astonishing beauty, a clear, radiant gold that glows in the cup. The aroma is nothing like the yeasty scent of Tella. It is the pure, unadulterated perfume of honey and wildflowers. When you drink it, the sweetness is immediate and profound, but it is a clean, bright sweetness, not heavy or cloying. It is followed by complex floral notes and a warmth that spreads through your chest, a deceptive warmth for this beautiful, gentle-tasting wine is far more potent than the daily beer. To drink Tej is to drink liquid poetry. The making of this noble beverage is both simpler and more painstaking than the brewing of Tella. It begins with the kingdom's greatest treasure, honey. Not just any honey, but the best, most fragrant honey, like the kind gathered from the wild hive. The flavor of the final tej depends entirely on the source of that honey. Honey from the lowlands, where bees visit fields of bright yellow mescal flowers, will produce a light, floral tej. The plates have been wiped clean with the last scraps of injera, and a comfortable, satisfied silence has settled over the family. Your belly is full, your spirit is calm. A rich meal like the one you've just had, with its savory meat and wild honey, feels like a celebration. And it makes you think about the calendar that governs your life. The rhythm of days that dictates what you can and cannot eat. This rhythm is not tied to the seasons alone, but to a story that came to your people generations ago. A story that reshaped your kingdom and found its way into your very cooking pot. Centuries ago, the great King Izana, ruler of the mighty Aksumite Empire, embraced a new faith, Christianity. In doing so, he made Aksum one of the very first Christian kingdoms on earth. The old gods and their stone temples slowly gave way to the one God, to churches built of stone and wood, and to priests in white robes who spoke of a new way of living. This great change echoed from the royal court in the capital all the way to your small village, and it fundamentally altered your relationship with food. The new faith brought with it a calendar, a wheel of the year that turned between two poles, fasting and feasting. You think of what a fasting day, a tzom, is like. On Wednesdays and Fridays, and for long stretches of the year like the 55 days before the festival of Easter, your diet changes completely. On these days, all animal life is sacred and forbidden on your plate. No meat from the hunt, no milk from the cow, no eggs from the chickens that scratch in the dirt. Not even the precious honey from the bees. Your meal on a fast day is a testament to the quiet ingenuity of your ancestors. It is on these days that the humble lentil and the versatile chickpea become the heroes of the kitchen. The what on a fasting day is made from red lentils, stewed into a thick, savory, and surprisingly satisfying porridge. Or perhaps it is made with ground chickpeas or a variety of greens from the garden. These meals are known as yitzam mejum, or fasting food. This tradition, born from restriction, is the reason for the incredible creativity and variety in the vegetable dishes of your land. It forced your people to find new ways to create delicious, fulfilling meals from the bounty of the earth alone, a culinary tradition of making abundance out of simplicity. Historians and theologians debate the speed and depth of the conversion process among the general Aksumite population, while the king and the court officially converted. How quickly did these new practices? The meal is over, the last drops of tella have been drunk, and a profound sense of well-being settles over the house. A full belly brings a unique kind of peace, a feeling of security that is deep and primal. But this feeling, is temporary. It is a gift of the present moment, a gift that was paid for by the hard work of the past. And the peace of the future must be paid for by hard work in the present. As you relax, your gaze drifts around your homestead, and you see the quiet, constant preparations for the inevitable lean times to come. Your eyes land on the thin, dark strips of meat hanging from a line under the eaves of the house, drying in the sun and the breeze. This is quanta, the ancient answer to the problem of a successful hunt. When your brother brought home the gazelle, it was a moment of bounty, but also a challenge. The fresh meat would spoil quickly in the heat. To preserve this precious protein, the uneaten portions were immediately cut into long, thin, ribbon-like strips. Your father then rubbed them thoroughly with coarse salt from the desert and a dusting of the spices from the coast. The salt pulls out the moisture, the source of decay, while the spices add flavor and help to deter insects. Now, they hang like leathery laundry, slowly curing in the sun. Each day, they grow darker, harder, and lighter until they're almost black, stiff and completely dry. This dried meat will last for months. It is a dense, chewy, and intensely savory source of food that can be gnawed on during a long journey, or reconstituted in a stew when fresh meat is a distant memory. It is a promise of flavor for a future, blander day. It is security you can see. Even more vital is the grain. the absolute bedrock of your survival. In the center of your family's small courtyard is a large, flat stone. It looks like a simple paving stone. But you know, the last stories of the meal have been told. The house is quiet. In the process of cleaning up, a clay cup slips from someone's grasp and shatters on the stone floor. It is a small, mundane accident. The pieces are swept up and tossed onto the midden heap behind the house, the designated place for the family's refuse. Broken pottery, food scraps, old bones, and ash. The cup is forgotten. Its life's work of holding Tella now over. It joins the silent, accumulating history of things that have been used up and thrown away. Now let the scene fade. Imagine the slow, silent march of time. 100 years pass, then 500, then 1,000. Your family line moves on. The sturdy stone house eventually crumbles. Its wooden roof decays, and the earth, with its patient blanket of soil and grass, slowly reclaims the clearing. The bustling kingdom of Aksum itself becomes a memory, a story told by old men. Its monuments silent witnesses to a lost glory. All that remains of your home, your life, your food, is buried under a gentle mound in the vast Ethiopian highlands. Until one day, a new kind of person arrives. They do not come to farm or to hunt, but to listen. They are archaeologists, and they are here to listen to the whispers of the earth. And you are with them. You are now the one kneeling in the dirt, the sun warm on your back, a small trowel in one hand and a soft brush in the other. This gentle mound is now a designated archaeological site, a grid of neatly marked squares. Your work is to go back in time, one thin layer of soil at a time. Your trowel scrapes against something hard. You stop digging and begin to brush. Slowly, a curved, reddish-brown object emerges from the dirt. It is a piece of broken pottery, a shard. To anyone else, it is rubbish. To you, it is a book. You can see the fine lines etched into it as decoration. You note the slight blackening of the outer surface, a telltale smudge of soot that tells you this was part of a cooking pot, one that sat for hours over a fire, just like the one that simmered your family's what. Nearby, you unearth a heavy, smooth, saddle-shaped stone, along with a smaller, loaf-shaped one. They're the grinding stones. You run your hand over the worn, concave surface and can almost feel the ghostly echo of the work, the endless back-and-forth motion that turned hard grain into life-sustaining flour. You might even take a tiny sample from its surface to be examined under a microscope, where the ghost of a single, fossilized particle of teff could be waiting to tell its story. You turn your attention to the ancient midden heap, the trash pile. It is an archaeologist's treasure chest. Here, you find the discarded bones from many meals. A specialist, a zooarchaeologist, will later examine them and tell you that they belong to a goat and a gazelle. They can tell you how the story that archaeology tells is not always one of prosperity. As you, the patient listener in the dirt, dig deeper into the past, you also move forward through time. The layers of soil are a book, and each page tells of a different era. After passing through the rich layers of Aksum's golden age, you notice a change. In the higher strata, the layers that speak of the 7th, 8th, and 9th centuries, the story becomes quieter, sadder. The shards of imported Roman glass disappear. The animal bones become fewer, and they're mostly from goats, not prize cattle. The story of the diet begins to fade. Let us return there one last time. You are no longer in the bustling heart of the empire, but in its twilight. You are the great-great-great-grandchild of the family from our story, living on the same land, but the land itself is tired. The hills around you, which in your ancestors' time were dotted with trees, are now bare. Generations of cutting wood for fuel and construction have taken their toll. When the heavy seasonal rains come, there is nothing to hold the earth in place. You watch from the door of your house as the water runs brown, thick with the precious topsoil of your fields, carrying it away down the hillside forever. This is a slow, creeping crisis. It is not a sudden catastrophe, but a gradual thinning of the world. Each year, your harvest of teff is a little smaller, even though you work just as hard. The soil is weaker, and it gives less in return. Your family's herd of cattle is gone. replaced by a few hardy goats who can survive on the sparse vegetation. Milk is a rarity, and the thought of eating meat from your domestic animals is a fantasy. The hunt, too, has changed. With the forest diminished, the gazelle and the ibex have retreated to distant, inaccessible valleys. Your brother returns from the hunt empty-handed more often than not. The rich, gamey flavor of wild meat is now a story the elders tell, a taste from a half-forgotten age of plenty. And what of the world beyond your hills? The great port of Adulis, which once pulsed with the commerce of empires, has fallen quiet. New powers have risen the world. The old trade routes that were Aksum's lifeblood have shifted, moving away from the Red Sea. The ships from India and the Mediterranean no longer arrive with their cargoes of spices, silks, and wine. The road to the coast is no longer a highway of wealth, but just a quiet, dusty track. The exact weight to give each factor in Aksum's decline is a major point of scholarly debate. Did the environmental collapse on the highlands starve the kingdom from within? Or did the economic isolation from the changing world cut off its wealth and power? Most likely, it was a perfect storm, the two crises feeding each other. A slow tightening of the knot around the great kingdom. In your kitchen, the change is stark. The spice pouch is empty and has not been refilled in your lifetime. The pungent, exciting flavors of pepper and cardamom are gone. The desert salt, once a staple, is now a luxury that is hard to acquire, its trade routes disrupted. You make do with salter local plants. You're what is almost always made from lentils. It is nourishing, it keeps you alive, but the vibrant complexity is gone. It is a simpler, more monotonous diet. Tej, the golden honey wine, is a legend, a drink from the time of kings. Even the daily tella is sometimes thinner, brewed from a more meager grain supply. Your meal is a quiet affair. You eat your lentil stew with your spongy bread, and you are grateful for it. You are a survivor. You are the resilient heir to a fading glory. But as you eat, you can't help but think of the stories passed down through your family. Stories of a time when the soil was deep and black, when the forests were full of game, and when the cooking pots were fragrant with spices from across the sea. You are eating the